Let's start by positioning the bridge. Look for the side that's lower, and this should be on the right side. As you can see here, there are 4 tiny grooves on the bridge. Now take the bridge and slide it under the strings, then make sure each string sits on each of these 4 grooves. Now find the pointy parts of the 2 F holes and draw an imaginary line between the 2. Place the feet of the bridge right in the middle of that line. Hold on to the feet so the bridge stays in place and gently stand the bridge straight up. You can check the fingerboard and make sure the strings are centered over the fingerboard as well. Now we're ready to tighten and tune the strings. We're roughly tightening the strings first to keep the bridge in place. Start from the 2 strings in the middle. We start here because if we tighten the outer strings first, it can cause the bridge to move. Trace the string upward to find the corresponding peg. You'll need to turn the peg clockwise slowly and make sure you keep pressing into the peg box the whole time you turn it, which prevents the peg from slipping. Now to the outer strings. It's now just tight enough to hold the bridge in place. Now let's tune the violin. Some violins come with tuners, but there are also quite a few free mobile apps that do the job. I like this one called Sound Corset because the interface is simple and it's available on both iOS and Android. The violin has 4 strings, G, D, A, and E, from the thickest to the thinnest. Here's a helpful chart. It may be hard to find the correct pitch by just looking for G, D, A, and E on your tuner. Some tuners indicate the note by pitch, such as G3, D4, etc., which shows you the right octave for the note. Others will indicate the frequency in hertz that corresponds to the pitch. Here's how it looks like on the Sound Corset app. We'll first adjust the pegs to get to the approximate pitch, and then use the fine tuners to get to the accurate pitch. When you tune with the peg, remember to push the peg into the peg box as you turn, and keep in mind that while you tune one string, the other strings might loosen, so you'll need to check every string at the end. Once you get to the fine tuner, you tighten the screw by turning it clockwise to make the pitch higher, or vice versa. Now everything is in tune and it should sound like this. G, D, A, E. The strings often need time to stretch out before staying in tune. It could take about 24 hours to break in. So be patient because your strings may get out of tune easily on your first day, and you'll need to let the strings stretch out gradually. Even after the break-in happens, expect to tune your violin every day because the strings naturally expand and contract, especially if there is change in temperature or humidity. Moving on to the shoulder rest, I'll show you how to put it on, but you'll need to fiddle around with the position and angle to fit your contour. Your shoulder rest keeps your violin flat and secure on your neck while you play, just like a bracket that supports a shelf. The right side sits on your chest, and since the chest slopes down for most people, you pick the side that's higher to be on your right side. Secure the left side first, and then slide the right side down. You can adjust the height and length of your shoulder rest to find the most comfortable position. There, the violin is all set. Moving on to the bow. It's not unusual for your bow hair to break. If this happens, don't pull the hair because it might cause more hair to fall off. I just use a nail clipper or scissors to clip the bottom and top so the ends of the hair won't interfere with playing. Now let's tighten the bow. You'll need to tighten the bow before use and loosen it after use every day. It helps to relieve pressure from the stick while not in use. Here's how you tighten it. Turn the screw clockwise to tighten just enough so your pinky can fit between the stick and the hair in the middle of the bow. The hair is just far enough away so your stick doesn't get scratched when you play the violin. When you first get a new bow, the hair will be slippery. Rosin adds friction, allowing the bow hair to grip onto the strings so your violin can make that beautiful sound. Apply the rosin on your bow by moving the bow back and forth for about 2 to 3 minutes, and try to cover every inch of the hair. The two ends of the bow should get more of that rosin treatment, but be careful not to hit the rosin with your frog because your rosin can break very easily. You'll need a generous amount of rosin on the very first day, and you'll reapply a little bit every day. I'd say 10 times back and forth each day. If your rosin is too stiff, which happens to rosins that are of lower quality, feel free to file it. But try to use a file with fine grain so the rosin can be applied to the bow more evenly. Rosins are not very expensive, so I do suggest getting another one if you have to keep filing the rosin. You can test to see if there's enough grip on the string when you play. You'll see some rosin dust on the string, but it shouldn't be a cloud of dust. Each day after you're done playing, make sure you wipe the rosin off your strings, fingerboard, violin, and bow stick with lint-free cloth such as microfiber, so your rosin doesn't create a tough layer on these surfaces over time. If you forget to wipe the strings for a long time and the rosin completely coated the strings, the best thing to do is to use some rubbing alcohol to wipe the rosin off your strings. If you're doing this, be extra careful not to drop any alcohol on the violin, since it will damage the varnish. If you don't have rubbing alcohol, you can gently peel off the layer of rosin with your fingernails or piece of cloth. Another thing to bear in mind is to try not to touch the bow hair, because the oil from the hand will make the hair slippery, and once your bow gets slippery, you will have to get your bow re-haired. Now your bow is ready too. My string broke. How do I put on a new string? First, make sure the string is actually broken and not just loose. Here is how a broken string looks like. While we were shooting this video, we already lost our G string. It happens. Even high-quality strings can break. First, loosen the string completely and take the peg out of the peg box. Then take out the broken string. This is also a good chance for you to apply your peg compound, which we'll cover later in the video. Now put the peg back into the peg box and find the tiny hole on the peg and insert the sharp end of the string. I like to push the string in quite far so there's enough room for the rest of the strings to wind around the peg. Another small tip is to wind the string once around itself to keep the end from sliding out. After winding the string around the peg a few times, take the other end, this will be a ball or loop, and secure it on your fine tuner. Now it's ready to tune. Remember to push the peg into the peg box while you're tuning it and check the bridge once in a while so it doesn't move while you tune. My peg is stuck. It is very common for the pegs to be stuck or become slippery due to the weather. People troubleshoot this using various methods, but I find the peg compound and chalk to be the most effective, and most high-end luthiers use this method. First, loosen the string completely and take the peg out of the peg box. Apply the peg compound and chalk all around the area that touches the peg box to give it some friction and smoothness to move around without slipping. And the rest should be the same as putting on a new string. My fine tuner is so hard to turn. If your fine tuner is stuck, you can take the screw out completely and use a cloth or tissue to clean the gunk that might have gotten in the thread. Press the screw hard with your fingers and turn it around. After that, you can put some lubricant on the thread. Here I'm using olive oil. Make sure you wipe the excess oil off so it doesn't drip onto the violin. Now screw it back on and it should turn more easily. My shoulder rest is uncomfortable. If your shoulder rest is uncomfortable, consider trying a foam shoulder rest. I tend to like very sturdy foam. This one right here was packaging material for my computer, which I used as my shoulder rest for over a decade. Make sure you find a firm one because you don't want your violin to move around while you play. I haven't been able to find anything firm enough from the commercial foam rests, so I highly recommend experimenting with packaging materials. To put it on, take a regular rubber band, slide it under the chin rest holder on one side. Place the foam here and snap the other end of the rubber band onto the rib to secure it. Another option is to consider a different shoulder rest. There are many options out there, but I especially like the one by Everest, which I now use and is absolutely fantastic with a nice firm grip onto the violin and firm middle that doesn't collapse while you're playing. It's one of the cheaper options too, so feel free to check it out. I personally tried more than a dozen different shoulder rests until I found the right one, and this is definitely a process for most people. Many of my musician friends come up with interesting hacks using socks and all sorts of stuff, so it may take some time and some trial and error until the violin starts to feel comfortable on your shoulder. If you don't like how the chin rest and shoulder rest feels on your neck, you can use a foam sheet like this one, which will give you some padding. My sound post collapsed. Your sound post is the tiny piece of wood that stands inside the violin under the feet of the bridge. It serves as a pillar that passes the vibration between the front and back of the violin. If your sound post fell off, you will need to go to a violin shop to get it positioned again, because without the right tools, you won't be able to put it back in place on your own. Alright, that was it. I hope this tutorial made your experience a little easier. For your convenience, there are links in the description below for all the items mentioned in this video today. Thanks for watching and feel free to ask questions in the comment below. Bye now.